So, with the attack on the Lusitania, the Suez, and now the Zimmerman telegram, there was a lot of tension going on between the US and Germany. And with the Germans basically sinking the 6 merchant ships, that was the last straw. And on April 2nd, 1917, President Wilson calls a special session of Congress and asks for a declaration of war against Germany, and he gets it. So now the US is officially in the war. Now, if you look to the picture on your right, that is a picture of the telegram that was sent. It is coded, and the US intercepted it. They broke it down and they solved the code, and that's how they knew what Germany was telling Mexico. So, here is your midpoint question. Do you believe it was okay for the president and the US government to keep the real reason on why the German U-boats sank the Lusitania? Now remember, the Germans said that there was ammunition there. The government of us and the British said no, there was no ammunition, there was no weapons. But now we know, some years later, that yeah, there was. Okay, so do you think it was okay for them to keep that secret? Why or why not? Justify your answer. Now remember, I've said this before and I'll say it again. The only way you could truly be wrong on these questions is, for one, you don't answer it. Two, you copy off somebody else. Or three, your answer is so left field it makes no sense whatsoever. Now, other than that, just as long as you give your reason and you can explain it, you're good. Okay? So, there's the writing prompt on the bottom. So go ahead and fill this part out. So, the US is now involved in the war, and they basically are asking people to volunteer. And 2 million men volunteered to fight for the US. Now, some felt a draft would be needed to get more people. Now, remember, a draft is basically they call up people. If you're from this age to this age, you have to sign up for the army. So that's what happened. A draft was in place, but they needed volunteers first. Now, of the volunteers, 400,000 African Americans were drafted. And then of those 400,000, 42,000 of them served overseas in combat. All right. Now, the thing is, just because they were soldiers doesn't necessarily mean that they had their rights, that they were treated as equals, because they really weren't. They were seen basically as second-class citizens, and there was no black officers in charge. It was all white officers. Now, in Europe, and you can see from the map to your right, trench warfare was really the thing. Okay, basically they ripped through France, that red line you see going all the way through France to Switzerland. Now remember, Switzerland is neutral, so they don't want to, either side don't want to tick them off. So they basically leave them alone. All right, they go to their border and that's it. And alongside the Russian and Romanian side, the Eastern Front, that's where like they had the biggest trenches and some of that. Now the thing is, the trenches were, in a sense, really, really hard to get through. It took a lot of time, and it's not like they just climb over and then just, there you go. No, they didn't do that kind of stuff. It was hard to move, you know, side to side, you know, because again, once I dug in, they were set, and then once they were set, there was a new machine called the rapid fire machine gun. Now this thing can shoot multiple bullets at a rapid pace, and all they had to do was just set up and go on the above the trench and start mowing down people. So the thing is, you have to one side dug in, the other side dug in, and they're basically have a standoff. Once in a while, some side might try to go over and attack, but that area between the trenches was called no man's land because it was basically a death sentence. If you went over and the other side was already set and they were waiting for you, all it took for them was just to bam, bam, you're dead. All right. But there are inventions later on that will help this out. All right. So in April 1915, at the Second Battle of Ypres, it was the first time that poison was used in war. Now, that's just not regular poison, this is poison gas. Okay. Mustard gas was one of the really bad ones, and they found out that the fumes from the smoke caused vomiting, blindness, and suffocation. And soon gas masks became a necessary part of the equipment that soldiers had to have when they're on the front lines or in battle. So if you've seen the movie Wonder Woman, they did a really good job in explaining that kind of stuff, especially with the lady who creates the different poisons and stuff. It was not pleasant, especially mustard gas. It was not pleasant. Um, Now, the thing is, in 1916, the British brought up a new invention as well. They brought up the tank. Now, the thing is, these tanks are not what how they are now. Okay, they were very, very slow. They were unreliable and they were actually kind of easy to destroy. But the thing is, they were used at times to go over trenches, to knock down barbed wires, things like that. But again, it wasn't that effective all that much considering how much barbed wire and fences there are around. So they could bust a hole, but they couldn't like take down a whole section, a whole front area. No, no. It was just enough for a soldier to get through and basically cause havoc. Now, in the water, this is a little fun fact. No American troop ships were ever sunk on their way to Europe. Those German U-boats did not sink one, not one of them. That's pretty fascinating. Now, in March 1917, riots broke out in Russia because they didn't like the way the government was handling the war. And on top of that, things were very scarce there, especially food and fuel. And when people are in a war and things are going bad, their people are dying, they're running out of food, their ambition for war, for what's right in a sense, it's going to take a back seat because what would you rather do? Keep your loyalty to somebody or see your children die from starvation and things like that. And chances are that loyalty to a friend might take a back seat compared to having your child dying in front of you due to starvation. Now, Vladimir Lenin, that's the guy on the pictures here right there. He was the leader of the Bolshevik Party. Now, he basically helped overthrow the Russian government and establish a communist government. Now, once he was leader of the Russian country, he basically gave his first act as to take Russia out of the war. Now, on March 3rd, 1918, the Treaty of the Brest-Litovsk, I probably pronounced that all wrong, I wouldn't doubt it, was signed with Germany. Now, this plays a key role because remember the map of Russia compared to Germany, you know how big Russia is? Basically, now Germany does not have to worry about that front. Um, and under that treaty, Russia lost a lot of territory. The Ukraine, Finland, Polish, and the Baltic territories, they lost it all. Okay. And now the Germans can now focus, instead of worrying about Russians coming over here, they can now turn their attention towards France and Britain and the United States. Okay, so now they had to worry about their back section. And on July 15th, 1918, the Germans launched what would be their last offensive of the war against the French and American troops in the Second Battle of Marne. Now, the thing is, this was the last push, right? The war's going on, they're running out of people, they're running out of supplies, and yeah, they settled an agreement with Russia, but still they were hurting. And they tried one last push to try to take on the French and Americans. But the thing is, they didn't advance. And in fact, 3 days later, the American and the French attacked them in a counterattack, and basically Germany was on the run. And it's at this point that the whole German, Austria-Hungary, Ottoman Empire start to unravel, and this is starting to become the end of the war. Now, President Wilson presented a plan called the 14 Points, and one of these points called for a League of Nations. Now, the League of Nations would help preserve peace and prevent future wars by pledging those nations to respect and protect each other's territories and political independence. All right, so that's what Wilson had in mind. Now, in October 1918, the Ottoman Empire signs a treaty with the Allies. They're done. November 4th, Austria-Hungary reaches an armistice. Now, that basically means there's stop fighting, it's a truce, you know. Now, like about a week later, Germany is forced to seek that same truce with the Allies. And then the Paris Peace Conference. That's when the Allied leaders basically discuss what do they want the post-war to be like. Okay, now they like this League of Nations, but something happens. Okay, June 28th, 1919, the Treaty of Versailles is stripped the arms away from Germany, so Germany cannot have an army. They have to pay reparations, and Germany has to acknowledge that they started World War One, and everything that it's caused, the destruction in every place, that it's their fault. That plays a huge role in World War Two, which we're going to be talking about later on. Now, that League of Nations I was talking about, basically Belgium, France, Russia, they agree. Yeah, this is a great idea. It's a great idea. And the thing is, the United States does not join. They keep out of it. And this plays a role later on. Again, talk about World War II, because the thing is, the United States, made it, Woodrow Wilson made it, and yet we didn't join in. So that plays a pivotal role. All right, so here is your final question. Do you believe that the United States should have joined the League of Nations? Why or why not? Justify your answer. Right. Now remember, if you need to go back to hear what it stood for, go for it. But the thing is, say President Wilson, that was his baby. This was his idea. And yet the country doesn't support him in being in it. And knowing what it means, do you think it was a good thing or a bad thing that we didn't join? Okay, so there you go. The writing prompt is on the bottom. So that's it. That's World War One in a nutshell. Okay, there's a lot more we could have gone into, but time is scarce. All right. So hope you learned something new. Be sure when you finish this packet that your name is on the paper and that you turn it into the basket. Okay. So that's it. I hope you guys had fun. All right. Talk to you guys later.